Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user AITA Emetophobiasis. Would I be the a-hole for bringing my daughter to my cousin's wedding, preventing my sister from going? I want to be as fair as possible because I myself am torn on the right decision to make. My sister has a debilitating fear of vomiting. Our family has a history with OCD, and when she was in middle school, she had gotten incredibly sick with E. coli and was hospitalized for 2 weeks. During this time, she had frequent vomiting and got moderate esophageal damage from vomiting, which caused her pain for months and some complications afterwards. Since then, she's altered her life to ensure she never vomits again due to her trauma. She sticks to eating only bland foods, will not eat any food she hasn't prepared herself, doesn't drink or take any medication that can cause vomiting, and obsessively checks news alerts for salmonella, E. coli, or stomach virus outbreaks. This isn't a mild dislike or phobia. She has quit a job and lost relationships over her obsession. There is no world where she can just suck it up, even for a few hours. So, a few months ago, at my mom's birthday gathering, my sister's fear extended to my daughter. She seemed normal before we took her to my parents. However, she vomited on the couch. My sister screamed and immediately got up and left. My daughter asked about why her aunt left without saying goodbye, and felt bad that her vomiting scared her. I was pretty upset with my sister after that for hurting my daughter's feelings, but they resolved it on FaceTime. Since then, she has avoided my daughter in person, although she still calls her and sends her gifts. This incident did cause her to seek treatment, however, and she's been in therapy for a couple of months. Now, my cousin is getting married on Valentine's Day, and my sister called me today saying she doesn't think she can attend if my daughter attends. She's been tracking the stomach flu in our area, and apparently there's a mild outbreak, and she's convinced my daughter will get it at daycare. She was really emotional on the phone, crying profusely and saying she knows her OCD is a problem she needs to fix and she loves my daughter to death, but she can't fix it in time for the wedding. She's also really close to this cousin and was set to help her get ready, so not going will devastate her and upset the bride. I asked her about whether she's afraid other guests will get her sick, and she just said it's easier to avoid physical contact with adults and my daughter will run right up to her. I told her I'll control my daughter, but that wasn't good enough for her because children touch everything. I told her that if my daughter gets sick, we won't take her, but she's pointed out that last time we didn't realize she was sick. I love my sister, but I also love my daughter, and I don't think my daughter should be removed from family gatherings just because she got sick one time. And while I know my sister can't fix her mental health overnight, she's known for years she needs treatment and hasn't gotten it until recently. I'm just skeptical that this won't lead to further exclusion for my daughter. My daughter is 3. I know she won't care about not attending the wedding if we distract her with something more fun. I know securing childcare won't be that difficult, husband's parents. But it's the principle of having to change our plans to accommodate her illness that she's known about for years and hasn't taken steps towards alleviating. I told my sister I'll think about it, but I'm honestly torn. Would I be the a-hole if I said no to her request to leave my daughter behind, which is what I'm leaning towards? Well, Abib, no, I don't think you'd be an a-hole for that, but I don't think it would serve anybody any purpose. For starters, your daughter, who in my opinion is the most important person in this whole scenario, along with the bride but for a separate reason, doesn't truly care about attending the wedding. And you said yourself you would need to make something more fun to keep her distracted. So if you actually do leave her with your husband's parents, she could have a fun day and you wouldn't have to worry about her. The additional upside is that your sister will go to help out the bride just like the bride wanted. It is her wedding, and if she wants her cousin there, then she shouldn't have to suffer because of this other issue. Now, regarding your sister, you said in the end that she's known about this for years and she's never wanted to do anything about it, except now. So the first thing I would tell her is, good for you for finally seeking therapy. You need to see it through, because if you don't, then you're going to have to choose whether you want to attend any other family event, because my daughter will not skip any other one. And that's all I have to say on this topic. See you at the wedding. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Altruistic Bunny says, just wondering if any other kids will be attending the wedding. They would be running around spreading their germs. How is your sister going to handle that? And Dopey responds, there will be other kids at the wedding, but OCD isn't rational. She's fixated on my daughter because she's the youngest kid that can walk. They have a close relationship. There's a norovirus outbreak near us. And most importantly, she's seen her vomit. She's been around my daughter numerous times in person. It's this specific instance of her vomiting that triggered her. Whether she reacts to other kids at the wedding remains to be seen. Right now, she's not as worried about them. And to this, Rogue Slytherin says, I would consider leaving your daughter at home. However, I would give your sister the following stipulations. 1. This is the only time we will be entertaining your OCD fixations because you're currently in treatment and the bride is relying on you for assistance. It is not healthy to enable you, and it is emotionally damaging to our daughter to expect her to not be present at future events. 2. The only time we will be keeping our daughter from family events in the future is if she is actively ill and or has a fever. We do not care if there are reported outbreaks in the area. If she isn't symptomatic, she will be included. 3. If you have concerns about our daughter getting sick at an event, we politely ask you to remove yourself from the situation. We will not tolerate you ostracizing her, treating her differently, or exposing her to your own irrational fears, potentially giving her a phobia. 4. We expect you to remain in treatment. If you choose not to do so, we will distance ourselves as illness is simply a part of life that cannot be predicted or prevented much of the time. We will continue to extend invites and include you in family events while you are actively working with a professional to get better. And 5. We will not tolerate triangulation, attempts to pit family against one another, manipulation, or forcing sides on the family. This is us versus OCD. The disease is the problem, not the child. It is your responsibility to treat and manage your condition, and the family is not here to be weaponized in any form or fashion. I would be incredibly clear about how going forward, this is to never happen again. Your parents seriously dropped the ball with respect to your sister's mental health. There should have been an intervention and intensive therapy years and years ago when this first occurred, and they are a large part of the reason this problem persists in the first place. Nevertheless, as an adult, your sister is responsible for handling her mental health. I'd also like to point out that there's literally nothing you can do to assist her with this, as excluding your daughter is not an equal solution and is enabling her to continue this behavior in the future. Genuinely, the family needs to have an intervention, not the a-hole. Worldly Advisor 7201 says, not the a-hole, but consider the bride. Would she rather spend the day with your sister whom she's close with, or a 3-year-old? Sorry about the tough situation, it's certainly not fair to you. And Dopey responds, yeah, it's a great point. My cousin would be really sad if my sister didn't come. And While Association 1680 says, you would not be the a-hole, but it sounds like it would be very easy for you to leave your daughter with your in-laws. I might, just this one time, oblige your sister and not take your daughter to the wedding. But if I did, I would say to my sister, we are going to indulge this request one time. This is your freebie. Time to get treatment. We will not make another unreasonable accommodation for your OCD, although of course we will avoid bringing anyone sick around you always. You would be absolutely justified in not doing that, but it would make the situation easier for a lot of people, bride included. And I think it would be an act of love that doesn't really put you out. And Dopey responds, I think this is the route I'm going to go. It means too much to the bride and my sister. I don't want to strain their relationship due to this. The community agrees OP would not be the a-hole, but the responses from the second commenter and that fourth commenter I read, I think they're spot on. So now, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. A lot has happened since my first post, and I wouldn't say that all that has happened has been productive. In my initial thread, I had made a decision to tell my sister I won't bring my daughter. During the conversation, I told her that this would be the only time because I didn't want our daughter to end up like we did dealing with our OCD father. My sister seems to take this to heart. I also asked if she talked to her therapist. She said no, because she was afraid the therapist would tell her something she wasn't ready to hear. I know I may get hate for this, but I amended my offer. I told her she has to tell her therapist about this during their next session and get her opinion and support before I exclude my daughter. I made this choice because I don't think it's healthy for her to keep things from her therapist. If her therapist agreed with her, then I wouldn't fight it. But if it was potentially enabling, I did not want to impact her care by reinforcing anything that could cause later harm. So my sister talked to her therapist. Apparently, her therapist told her she can't dictate a guest list as a coping mechanism, and that's not sustainable, and told her to seek coping mechanisms that won't require others to change behavior. Before telling me what her therapist said, my sister ended up going to the bride directly and asking if she could wear a mask and be seated away from my daughter during the ceremony and leave after the ceremony. This caused some conflict between my sister and the bride. She didn't want the mask in the pictures and was upset she was leaving so soon. They compromised and agreed that she'll take her mask off for pictures. My sister texts me that I can bring my daughter. In the background, before my sister's text, I was prepping my daughter not to go and setting up some fun time with her parents. After my sister's text, my cousin ends up calling me and discussing how annoyed she is about the mask and how she didn't make my sister a bridesmaid because she has limitations. I asked her if it would just be easier for me to not bring my daughter. She gave me the vibe that this would be her preference instead of my sister wearing a mask. Then I text my sister my daughter isn't coming, and while I don't tell her it's due to my cousin's request, she goes on a rant about how my cousin will not accommodate her and admits she came to me because she knew my cousin wouldn't accommodate her. Apparently, my cousin was already annoyed that she planned not to eat at the wedding unless she could bring her own food. My sister thinks excluding a person is more unreasonable than a slight modification to the dress code due to a health issue. And while I agree more with my sister than my sister does always go out on a limb for her. I'm not the bride, and I don't want to be in the middle of this. She said my daughter going will actually be healthier for her since it's partial exposure therapy, but she needs the mask as an aid. At this point, I'm tired of the back and forth and wanted to stop as it's all happened within the same day. I tell my sister my daughter won't come and will go to the aquarium instead, and that a wedding is not an avenue for exposure therapy. I just didn't want either my cousin nor my sister to change their mind again. Next week is the wedding, and at this point, I don't know if my sister will still get ready with my cousin. It sucks that their relationship is breaking down over this, and my relationship with both of them is kind of affected because I feel like my daughter and I were being pulled back and forth in the middle. In happier news, I asked my daughter if she'd rather go to the party, what we're calling the wedding with her, or the aquarium with Nana and Gramps. She chose the aquarium on the condition that she gets cake, which was her sole motivator for going to the wedding. So at least someone is happy. Well, Opie, I think you've made the right decision for your daughter. And regarding your sister, honestly, I just lost all empathy for her when she said she wanted to use your daughter as a prop for exposure therapy. If she wants exposure therapy with a prop, maybe she should go to the toy store and buy herself some fake puke and work with that. Not my kid. My kid is not a prop. Additionally, her therapist told her that not everybody's going to accommodate her and she shouldn't expect that. Yet, she was expecting that from the bride nonetheless. But whatever, I think you're making the right choice and not to get dragged into this any further. So on that note, here's wishing all goes well at that wedding. Take care, OP, and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user DullIngenuity5938. Am I the a-hole for announcing my pregnancy at Thanksgiving? My husband and I recently found out we're pregnant. We are really excited about the news, but want to wait until the end of the first trimester to make sure everything is well with the pregnancy. So we decided to announce our pregnancy at Thanksgiving when the whole family was together so that we could tell everyone at once. I only told 2 people in my family and I knew that they could keep a secret. Besides that, no one else knew. As soon as we made the announcement, one of my sisters broke down crying and was very upset. She wanted to know first and was upset that I didn't tell her, since she always told me about all her pregnancies first. But my sister cannot keep a secret. She's a constant gossiper, especially with family. I told her first that I got into graduate school and she told my parents before I could. She announced my engagement to my mom before I could. So my husband and I decided to keep it a secret, especially until we knew everything was healthy with the baby. I knew if I told her first, she would tell everyone in the family, and it would really upset me if I found out my whole family knew before I wanted to tell them. After she found out I didn't tell her first at the dinner table, she full-on started crying. After that, she went after other people in my family, my parents, and my other siblings. They were overall agitated and crying and made everyone at Thanksgiving upset, and honestly made me feel bad when we made the announcement. So am I the a-hole for not telling her first, even though she always told me her pregnancies first? No, Opie, of course you're not the a-hole. You're absolutely right. If she can't be trusted with a secret, then why should you tell her unless you actually want her to spread the news? That's what she'd be good for. And now she's making it all about herself, trying to get sympathy from the family or whatever. Listen, if they start giving you grief, I just start keeping them at arm's length, because why would you want that stress, particularly now that you're pregnant? I don't know what your sister's deal is, but I don't think you need to waste time trying to fix something you didn't break. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments. Sensitive Bean 66 says, not the a-hole. You gave her multiple chances to prove she could be trusted with important news, and each time she broke that trust. Trust is earned, not given. She is making this beautiful moment about herself rather than being happy with you and allowing the room to celebrate with you. I'm sorry she is making you feel guilty for doing what you wanted to do, which was a wonderful idea. NYC Storyteller says, not the a-hole. I would have called her out for her reaction and told her straight up that I will never tell her anything first because she's a gossip and always spills the beans to the rest of the family. It doesn't matter that she told you first. You're under no obligation to reciprocate. You get to share your good news in your way, in your own time. MC Susie says, info request. Can you explain more about she went after other people in my family? They were just overall agitated and crying. I can't figure out what happened at that point. And Opie responds, she left shortly after dinner. I thought she calmed down, but I heard her calling my parents, just yelling at them. And my parents hurried and shut the door and would not talk to me about it. I know she was texting my other siblings about it because they would break down in tears. And one of them said my sister was being very rude. Another family member had a conversation with her about the baby announcement, and they had a full-on panic attack and had to take their anxiety medication. No one in my family will tell me exactly what she said to them. I don't know if it's to protect me or what. The community agrees OP is not the a-hole and that the sister is just looking for attention or just trying to make things about her. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I just wanted to update everyone about what happened after I announced my pregnancy on Thanksgiving Day and upset my sister. I found out what my sister was calling all the family members about. Apparently, she doesn't like my husband and hasn't for a long time. She made up stories about how he didn't say hi to her at Thanksgiving, but I was there and I did hear him say hi, and he didn't play with her children. But again, multiple people saw him playing with her children and all of the other children. I think she said a bunch of other things about my husband, but this is what I could get out of the other family members. But since then, it's put a little bit of a strain on my relationship with my family. No one really calls or talks to me anymore, and I recently found out they're planning a family vacation for a family member's 40th birthday. My sister called me to let me know I was not invited and that the family planned it, and that it would be right after my due date. She said no one in my family reached out to invite me because they figured I wouldn't want to come anyway, since my due date is a few weeks before, even though this family member's birthday isn't for another 5 months. They planned it to fall a few weeks after the baby is due, but I wanted to let everyone know that I have no contact with my sister and very little with my family anymore. I'm not really close with them, and they haven't reached out to ask me about the baby or included me in any family functions right now. I'm just choosing my husband, the baby, and myself. And when you're exposed to this kind of toxic behavior, OP, that is the right choice. Your family is your husband, your baby, and you. Anybody else is now extended family, and that's it. So here's wishing you and your husband the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge and it's by user Outer Senshi. Please message me in the group chat. Alright, but you won't like it. I have a coworker I don't get along with. I tried being friendly with him when I first started, but he listened to a coworker who worked in my unit and she only ever spoke badly about me. She later admitted it's because she has a hard time making friends, is shy, and sometimes being a little bit mean helps her open up. Anyway, this coworker guy is only ever nice and helpful to the girls. For the longest time, I was the only guy in my unit. That meant that if he had information he needed to share to me, he would take it to my boss. If he had information to share to anyone else in my unit, he would be bearing gifts, usually Mexican or Japanese snacks. He prefers his private messages to be only from the girls in the office. Recently, he directly told me to only message him in the group chat. If it hasn't been for the way he told me, I would have been okay. There are managers in that group chat, timestamps, etc. I began to message him in the group chat, but only to point out his errors, showing that he was making people wait up to an hour to hear from him on issues that normally take 2 to 5 minutes to get a response back on, sending messages that people are on hold for him and implying that he should be taking calls he promises to take and not leaving them to flirt with the girls in the office. In the last hour of the day, he came back to me and just quickly said, "Please send messages